Okay, here we are. I think we are now live. I'll give it a second to populate everywhere, make sure everything's working, but welcome to Honda Garage, Idaho. In this live stream, first ever, thank you so much for joining to those of you that will be here. This will be available also as a regular video on the channel at some point, but today I am going to design an armrest bracket for the OEM CRZ center armrest, and um, sorry, just making sure my stream goes through correctly. Let's go ahead and start. It'll probably be a bit janky. This is my first time getting everything set up, so we'll see how it goes. Okay, and make sure this is live. There we go. Okay, there we go. All right. Looks like we are indeed live now. Go ahead and keep that down. All right. Okay. So, off to a rocky start already. That's just part of live performance, I assume. Oh well. So, in today's video, live stream, we're looking at designing a replacement bracket for the Honda CRZ factory armrest. So, in the CRZ world, a lot of these secondhand armrests don't come with a mounting bracket. The base of the armrest has these metal tabs on it with bolt holes, and if you're buying them secondhand, they almost don't ever come with the bracket that mounts to those and then attaches to the frame underneath the center console. So mine that I just found and purchased didn't come with one either, and I have some novice experience with doing CAD, so I figured I will design my own bracket, get one made, and we will see how it turns out. So in this stream, I'm going to just design the bracket. I'm not an engineer by trade or by education or anything. I just kind of do this 3D design stuff as more of a hobby. So this is not going to be by any means a guide on how to use the software I'm using or how to design good, engineer good models. That's not what this is about, but I thought it might be a good opportunity for me to design something quickly and also give you guys a chance to reach out if you have any questions about my Series E build overall so far, other Honda vehicles I've owned, just anything you like, really. I have my chat over to the side here, so if anybody puts in questions, I'll be able to see that. But this is what we are working on. So I took my 3D scanner out to the CRZ, and I have two scans here essentially, and I'll go over. There will be a complete video on the channel later once the brackets are designed. I'll do a video kind of going over the install process, and I did take some clips of the 3D scanner for this. It was kind of fun to haul my computer out there again. I did take one scan of the base of the armrest, so that's this sort of light gray scan here up on the top side, and then on the bottom, this black scan here is the base floor where the armrest or the center console is going to sit. And I kind of did that scan in two parts, so I actually was able to do most of the scan of the floor, reinstall the center console, and continue the scan to end up with this section right here along this top edge. This is actually the top of the factory center console where the armrest would clip in. So that gave me a great starting point for marrying the two scans together and being able to just see kind of how they'd fit together and design a bracket that will put everything exactly where it's supposed to be. Let's see here. Awesome, we've got one message here from Third Pedal, Best Pedal. So true. I am a diehard 6-speed or 5-speed fan. Thank you a ton for your videos on the CRZ swap. Been following Abdul's guide. Yes. I appreciate you thinking that mine was better. All the information I presented is essentially based on his guide. I spent probably a month reading through it over and over, just to make sure I knew exactly what I was getting into labor-wise, what I needed to find parts-wise. So I did do my best, and I'm continuing to do so far on the video series to keep the information simple, easy to digest. But yes, his guide is amazing. I use that as a base for my entire swap. There's tons of in-depth stuff in there. I especially recommend looking into it if you're doing an automatic to manual conversion at the same time as an engine swap on the CRZ, because he does cover some of that info as well. Very good stuff. So yes, but thank you so much for your appreciation of the videos I'm making. I'm glad that it is helpful for other people. Because I know, I mean, this is my first engine swap project. It can be a very daunting process. There's a huge amount of information involved, and if you don't already know it, it's kind of nebulous where to start or how to dive in. So I took that journey, and I'm hoping that the video series makes it easier for other people to do the same. And then, of course, now that the swap is mostly done, there's still stuff to finish up here and there, but now I'm kind of transitioning over to the more cosmetic stuff, the more fun stuff. So CRZ sound system, converting the interior to the 2013 and up black interior, and the center console and a couple other accessories are a part of that. So that is what we are going to be working on tonight. And like I said, I'm going to be designing this kind of in the background as I talk. It's not going to be a tutorial on how to design or do CAD properly. I'm by no means an expert. The software that I'm using is FreeCAD. It is robust enough for what I have needed it for so far. And there's actually a fun workbench in here that's an add-on called the sheet metal workbench, which is what I will be using here once I get my main bracket design kind of lined out. So I'm going to start with, I think, making the tabs that mount up here to the armrest itself. I do apologize for the constant flashing between the yellow and gray and stuff. If that's uh, too annoying visually, I can try and change that real quick on the fly. Um, yes, he did have a right-hand drive vehicle, which was part of the reason why he had issues with like the brake booster and that kind of stuff, just having space against the firewall with everything being on the opposite side, steering column wise. Thankfully, for North American vehicles, left-hand drive market, that was not as much of a problem for me. I found that it was quite spacious, even after getting the hood and the windshield wiper cowling and everything put back on, which I think is coming up in the next video on the swap when I take care of the AC. So we will go over that as well. And I'm just going to get started here on my bracket design. The armrest that I picked up did come with the hardware I need, and actually the center console that I bought when I was doing my interior conversion of the 2013 black interior. The center console itself, where the shifter and everything is, was actually cheaper to get from Japan than anywhere here in the U.S., so that's where I ordered one from. And it had, at one point, had a factory armrest option installed on it because all the holes in these sides, which again I'll cover the actual installation of this armrest in a future video, were already pre-drilled and had plastic caps and everything that came with it, so that was super exciting. The only thing essentially that I am missing is this bracket, and so once I get that done, I can continue getting my interior put together. And these are using M6 bolts, it looks like. So we will go ahead and use that here. Let's go with 6/8 diameter on that. Yeah, so as I mentioned right at the start, it's super common for these armrests, if you're picking them up secondhand, not to include this main bracket. So as we can see right here, this is the metal tabs that stick down out of the actual armrest. Those pretty much always come with it. It's just part of the internal structure. And then down here on the floor of the vehicle, so this, let's see if I can show here. This bolt right here is one of the back bolts for the parking brake arm. That's where that mounts. And here we can see inside this scan, get a better position on it there. So this assembly here, this is where the parking brake cables are coming out. And just off to the side, right down below, oh, this one's really hard to see. Right down below where the e-brake handle mounts to the chassis, there's a couple bolts here, and that is what our bracket is going to attach to on the floor, and then it's going to snake up inside and reach the armrest itself. So I'm basically just designing an interim bracket. I think what I am going to do is I'd like to start maybe a little website or something and put up a few of the things I design and some information on like the CRZ stuff and whatever vehicles I do in the future, and just make that available for other people doing these same type of projects. I don't know that I would like manufacture and sell a bunch of these, but if other people have the means to make them and just need a file, that's something that I will be happy to share. So that should be online, either on a site or probably just for now in a Google Drive link that'll be live when the installation video for this comes out. Let's see, make sure stream is still healthy, looks good. Okay, let's see. So like I said, we are going to start off on the top side here, making the portion of the bracket that mounts to the armrest here. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to create half of it and mirror it because on the driver's side of this armrest, we have a single bolt hole in the middle of this tab, and then on the passenger side, we actually have two. There's one bolt hole back here, and then one that kind of lines up with where the screw actually goes through to mount the center console to the frame. So we are going to have to kind of design two halves to it. But for right now, we should be able to get this right in here, center it somewhere close around that hole, and we'll start off with our first dimensions here. We'll do 104.75 millimeters, and we'll do 25.25 right here. So there is our first mounting point, and then I will just create a quick little shape here for the upper tab. This can, of course, all be refined later. Yes, yeah, I'd be happy to share the file for this. I know that it's super hard to find an armrest used for sale that has the bracket with it. I'm going to design this with steel in mind, as far as like the thickness of the material and the bend radii and everything goes. There's a few places online. Send Cut Send is one that I have used a bunch. I've come across other YouTubers that have used them and recommended them, so I tried it out for a couple parts and was really happy with the results I got from that. So if when I get the file uploaded for this, people can download that, take it to Send Cut Send or a similar service, and just have the stuff fabricated for them on a relatively low cost, and just go ahead and use it straight from there. So yes, that is definitely something that I think will be useful. Let's do 60 for now, maybe, and 48, sure. 70, sure, do 75 there, and set a radius of 4 millimeters on these. Okay, so this is basically the first step of the design, and we will, let's see, let's go ahead and extrude that out by 2 millimeters. So this basic little shape here is going to be the first section on the mounting bracket. And we are going to have to get a little creative with angles. So underneath here we've got our parking cables, and the bracket kind of needs to wrap around and underneath those. It'll be interesting to play with. That is one of the huge benefits to doing a 3D scan of stuff like this, is just seeing exactly where everything's at in the vehicle, being able to plan around it instead of constantly having to jump out and do measurements and iterate on prototypes. So this should shave off quite a bit of time, and once I have a file designed, it should just drop right in and work as planned. It is possible that I will have to disconnect the parking brake cables or something temporarily to slide the bracket around and underneath the first time. But again, I will figure that out myself, and then we'll tackle that in the final video showing the whole installation process for this. Let's see. Great question on which 3D scanner do I use. I don't have it sitting next to me right now, which is an unfortunate oversight. It's a model from Creality. I think it's called their Otter series. It's a little handheld scanner unit. It runs $800 to $900, I think, depending on if you're able to get it during a sale or not. And I picked it up to use for a few various projects because before that I was actually sending parts out to a third party to have them 3D scan it, clean up the model, ship the part back to me, send me a model and everything, and that was a paid service, and it was quite expensive for each part. Um, so as I found myself getting more and more into the 3D modeling aspect, I could justify the price of that tool, and so far it has been well worth the cost. I mean, there's no way I could ship a vehicle to this company and have them scan the interior for me. So having that has been hugely beneficial for doing projects like this where I need that flexibility. Let's see, I'm going to adjust the design of this arm a little bit. Yeah, let's do maybe 4 on there. Yeah, and they have a few different models, some that are quite higher capacity than others. This little handheld model, it has been plenty for what I need. It has pretty decent resolution. These particular scans are a little rough, like this carpet texture here. And I've already obliterated the mesh a bit just to make it easier on my computer to process it quickly. But um, the detail is actually surprisingly good on those. I've used it for a wide variety of projects with great success accuracy-wise. And I think it has a feature where you can run it through a phone and use their app. I've just done it on my PC every time. But so far that has worked quite well. So I'm happy with the scanner, and I think if you can justify the cost for yourself for whatever types of projects you're doing, then it's definitely something worth looking into. Let's see, forgot to change that to construction geometry. And let's see here. So this curvature that I'm adding here, this, I'll set that to another 4 radius, and maybe make this angle 45 for now, just to see, and make this a 25. No, I can't do that. What I need to do is make this parallel. Okay, so what I'm doing here, oh yeah, and that's definitely going to have to be changed a bit because it's colliding with the floor, but basically this product, or this bracket, is going to be a bent sheet metal part, so I want to use, for one, as few bends as possible to keep the cost down, but also be considerate of where those bends are going to have to take place in order to fit around the parts nearby this armrest. So as I mentioned, the parking brake cables, that the bracket's going to have to kind of wrap underneath them. So I may actually move that up quite a bit higher here. Let's go with this, and then maybe 2 on here. Yeah, that's better. So then I can bring a bit of straight material off of this section, bring it forward a bit, and then have it bend and wrap under the cables that way. We'll play around with it a little bit. And I have no idea how long this design will take. I may not get it done in this stream. It might end up being something that gets done super fast. We'll just have to see. But it's a good project to work on for right now on a Saturday evening. Let's see. Yes, I did use that to scan the trunk as well for the sub box. Another huge beneficial use of that, and it was actually quite lucky that I had ordered that 12-inch square subwoofer before I had measured and built the box, so it was pure luck that the sealed box volume requirements of that subwoofer happened to match up basically perfectly with the volume of the box ended up building. But yes, that was quite fortunate as well. I think we're going to change this to maybe a 30, let's do like a 32 degree and line it up with the cables a bit better. Yeah, that might work. Let's see. How about we bring, do I have a dimension on that? It is this guy that moves. Okay. So we'll bring this guy a bit closer, and then we'll drop this one back down a bit. One of the things I try to factor in when I'm designing brackets like this is the bend radii. So obviously you can't have a perfect, exact, sharp 90 degree with material, especially steel. It's just tougher to bend. There'll be flares and stuff. So you want to account for a bend radius, a nice gradual open bend. And that is something you have to consider when you're dealing with the space of parts. So for example, if we put a bend on this face right here, that is going to likely collide with this little bit of the armrest bracket that's still sticking out below right here. So I'm trying to make sure that I have space to clear that with a bend, while also making a bend soon enough that it doesn't interfere with the carpeting down here on the floor. So this is, of course, why factory products can be so expensive because of all the time required to design stuff, but that's not a conversation for this day necessarily. So let's take a look and see if I put a bend on this with a radius of maybe, let's see, we'll do minus 45 for now, and like a 2 mm radius. Let's see where that lands us. Okay, we're starting to cut it close on this side. That does clear the carpeting sticking up right here, and we can always angle this section of the face to be more parallel with the floor too, but that looks like it is a good angle for reaching underneath the parking cables. It looks like it'll work to me, so we will stick with that for now. Do I have a collision here? I think so. Let's add a bit more to that just to be safe. Okay, using that space for a battery, using IMA cables as a relocation kit. That is also an excellent idea. Actually, is that going to be your only 12-volt battery is going to be in the trunk, or are you going to do a double battery setup, or what's your exact plan there? That sounds interesting. I think I had seen, I think on Abdul's guide, he mentioned that you can use the cables to do a battery relocation, but I don't remember if he actually did. But that is a good idea, and that will clean up some space in your engine bay if you need it for a turbo setup or something, additional extra piping that you're putting in. Let's see. Drop this down maybe one more. Boost that up a little bit more. Seven. And where did my, oh, here it is. Yeah, I like that a little bit better space-wise. Let's see. Yeah, I think that gives us quite a bit more room to work with here. And one thing I will say about the armrest mounting actually is that if you don't want to make a bracket or don't have the means, it's not strictly required. So this area right up here, so as I said, this gray scan is the actual armrest piece here, and it's got this big flat section along the bottom, as you can see. And there's actually plastic clips all around the edge of that snap into the center console here. When I first received this armrest from the forum member that I bought it from, I snapped it in just to test fit it and see how it looked. And it was actually impressively stable, even leaning on like the front end of it toward the dash. Putting a little weight on that, it you could tell it wasn't secured well, but it didn't just pop right out immediately or anything. So if you really had to skimp on materials or something, and your armrest didn't come with a bracket, you could get away with not using one. So just throwing that out there. As long as the clips are all in good shape and everything, and you weren't going to be putting it under a ton of heavy use, you could probably get away with that no problem. Let's see. That'll be the only battery, but I'm adding a terminal to the fuse that attaches to the battery to have a jump point if needed. Excellent foresight. Yes, I have already had to jump my K-swap a couple times just from not necessarily even swap related, but just leaving the lights on and stuff. And so yeah, if you ever get in a situation like that, you will definitely want to have a convenient access point under the hood for jumping. Although, depending on how cluttered your trunk or subfloor ends up being with the spare and whatnot, if you leave that in or out, it could be relatively fast to get in there. Um, the only downside is that with the trunk, if your battery is dead enough to not start the car, but you still have enough charge to use the electronic latch on the door, then you're good. But if the battery's really dead, then you're not going to be able to open the trunk at all without crawling through the inside and using the emergency release. So yeah, keeping something up in the engine bay is definitely a smart idea, I think. Yeah, electronic trunk latch makes it too hard. That's certainly not something you could rely on to still work, depending on how dead your battery is. Okay, I'm gonna pop the armrest scan off here for a minute, and let's make this a bit more transparent here for a moment. I want to get a lock on where my bolts on the floor are going to go, because I don't think those line up with each other either vertically, and they're on a slight angle too, if I recall from looking at it physically. So here's our bolt head right here for the emergency brake bracket, and yeah, this little section right here is where our bolts are at for the on the floor that we're going to use to mount this bracket to. So it is on a slight incline. What I might actually do here is go with a sketch on the side and make basically a little plate here, and these have a washer on them as well, so the actual spot they're going to mount to is going to be down here a little ways. We'll just make a rectangle here with the correct angle that we need, and then I will draw on the face of it where I actually want to punch out for the shape. This is also going to require a bend basically right off the bat. I don't know how easy it is to see here, but in this area there's a raised bit of metal right behind this bolt, so if I attach a bracket there, it's going to have to bend upward a little bit to arch over that essentially immediately. And I do have reference photos. I did find a listing on a Japan auction site, I think, that was selling an armrest and it had the bracket with it, so I did screen cap those just to have a quick reference of what type of shape I should design for. Let me see if I still have those saved here. I hope so. I doubt I will be able to find them again. If not, yeah, I'm not seeing them at a glance right now. Is that close to it? Oh yes, okay, here we go. Yeah, and the factory bracket is the same thing, basically a little ring that mounts right underneath that bolt, and then there's immediately a bend up to the rest of the bracket, which is should be doable. Um, let's see here. yeah, we'll have to play around with it and just see what we get as far as a design goes. But that is my outline on the washer, so we will put our bracket here. Give this an angle of, really only a 3-degree, or I guess 7-degree slope, but it is something to keep in mind for sure. We'll make this 28 millimeters long for the moment. I will put a construction line through somewhat the center of the bolt here. Let's see. Sure, that's close enough. And then we will mount that on here. Make this 2 millimeters thick. And then we want this guy to be sure 13. That should work. So now I want to extend this and find out if that is going to happen to work for both bolts. So looking in here, it looks like that's a tiny bit too far down, but that actually should line up for both bolts pretty well. So let's do maybe 12.5 here. And I also need to set this to be halfway. Okay, that's better. So that should sit on right on the floor and give us, yep, our washers will sit right on top of that just fine. Okay, excellent. So what we need now is to basically create, we'll put a plain sketch on here and mark out about where our bolt holes are going to go and proceed from there. We'll make this section, we'll make 2 tabs in one shot out of one piece. Okay. I have been driving the K-Swap CRZ every Saturday to work. So far, it's held up spectacularly. I don't have the AC hooked up yet still. Still working on that for the next video. The coolant leak issue I did fix, so thankfully that has not been a problem. But yeah, I've driven it probably maybe 500 or 600 miles. Well, I wouldn't say that much. Maybe 400 miles at most since the last K-Swap video went live, and so far it's been running quite smoothly. I'm very happy with it. I also don't have any tuning done yet, so I still have issues with it running sub-optimally for how much power it could be making. But as it is, it drives. I did get an alignment done, although I have some extra suspension parts coming in. I'll have to get it realigned after that. But all in all, I'm very happy with it so far, and it seems like everything is holding up pretty well. No failures, as far as I can tell so far. No other fluid leaks, engine or transmission wise. The custom exhaust is working well. I'm gonna change it out for a slightly quieter one, I think. I'd love to take this machine to events and stuff and be able to actually drive it there, but uh, it's just a bit loud for my taste, and I think if I was going to take it on any type of extended duration trip, it would get, the drone and everything would be a little much after a while. So I'm planning to change that out here in the near future. But yeah, I mean, so far, very happy with how it turned out, and yeah, I would say for a swap project, one of the biggest things is just doing research ahead of time. I bought the car essentially, I think it was 3 years ago now, and I spent almost a year with it just sitting and basically gathering information and parts. Um, and that paid off big time when it came to do the actual work because it just went so much smoother. I had everything I needed right off the bat, so that ended up being a very good asset. Was doing lots of research ahead of time. So if any of you are considering doing a case swap yourself in the future, definitely really spend some time on the research and know what you're getting into first. That makes a big difference. And I want to make sure I'm looking at this bracket correctly because I'm not seeing part of the sketch on here. Oh, it's flipped. Very interesting. Okay, I didn't notice that. So yes, this is actually going to be facing this way, not a problem. And I need to extend these a little farther out that way. There we go. Okay, so in this spot here, we can kind of see what I'm talking about, where this gray beam that's going all the way across is where the sheet metal for the bracket's going to be, and right here we can see a part of the floor, or maybe it's even part of the bracket for the emergency brake that is sticking up. It's ridged, and this bracket would collide with it. So what I'm doing right here, this shape that I've just put in is basically, this is our hole for the mounting bolt to go through, and then it's just going to be kind of a small tab out here, and as soon as it gets past the desired thickness that I want here between the edge and the bolt, it's going to bend up and give us a bit of clearance to hop over that ridge. So we'll do that for both sides and then see where that lands us for a part that's going to sit in the center of everything and hold it all together. Oh yeah, AC is a must for the South. Got the top line in, waiting on the liquid line to come in Monday. GE Fit AC lines seem to be the trick. Yes, that is actually what I ordered as well. I have not test fitted everything yet. I basically saw Hasport was doing their video on their K-Swap CRZ, and for like 5 seconds they offhandedly mentioned that they used GE Fit AC lines, so I did pick up some of those as well. The biggest concern that I have is the line that goes from the K series compressor to the AC condenser. As far as as far as I can tell, the rest of the GE Fit lines will work great, but I'm reusing the factory K20 AC compressor, and just the shape and the angle of the fittings coming off the compressor and the way that the tube is supposed to route on a Civic, it doesn't look like it's going to play well with the CRZ. So that's something I still have to experiment with and figure out. Right now, up here in Idaho, it's mid 90s every day, and I've just been driving with the windows down, and my eyes dried out to oblivion. So that's what I'm dealing with. But I'm hoping to get AC put in before the end of the season, just so I can get it charged, make sure it's all sealed well and working. But yes, the GE Fit lines, that is what I went with as well, and so far that does seem to be what is going to be my final plan for that. I think that is the main thing mechanically that I still have to wrap up on the swap. Other than that, it's getting all the body parts put back together and getting a tune rolling. I don't think there's really anything else physically. Well, I guess the other thing that I have to do is getting lights on the dash cleared, which is going to be, that's probably going to be a video that takes quite a while to put out because I want to be pretty thorough about it. I have lights on right now for the airbag system, which is unrelated. I have a reprogramming issue with my SI seats that I'm going to be going over whenever that video comes out. I have an ABS light on, which I'm not 100% certain is due to the swap. I can't remember if I had that on when I bought the car because the vehicle, the shell that I picked up had previously been in a front end collision and had some damage to it, which is why it was the perfect candidate for me to pick up for cheap and then grab some aftermarket body parts and grab, a K series drivetrain and all that. But I do not recall if my ABS issue was present before I started the swap. I did not have the foresight to check all my dash errors, and I also didn't have as fancy of a code detection tool as I do now. So that I have yet to determine if it's something swap related or not. And then I have lights for traction control, which could just be on because the ABS is having an issue. Um, I've noticed some interesting fluctuations with my fuel gauge. That I'd like to investigate further. I don't know if that's swap related or if it's something else, but that's been interesting for me to encounter as I'm driving and seeing my entire fuel gauge drop from 3/4 to empty within the span of 10 miles and not knowing if that's real or not. So I'm going to check that out. And then, of course, the big light on the dash, the IMA battery error light. That one, I have not seen much information on people tackling that system and uh, clearing it out or doing something like the TPMSD where you have a module that plugs in and tricks this system into thinking all is well, because that system is quite a bit more complex. I personally would love to spend the time to do some CAN bus readings. In fact, I bought a CAN bus sniffer tool, so I would love to do some experimentation there on trying to read the signals and see what I can get out of it and possibly design some part or software to fool the car into thinking IMA is all good. But I would definitely love to try and get rid of that light on the dash and just have a completely error-free, you know, essentially factory swap. Um, so that is my goal, and as I said, that will take quite a bit of work, so I have no idea how long it will take to get to that portion of the swap, but that's something I do plan to do eventually. I don't mind you blowing up the chat at all. This was kind of my goal for this project was just to work on this a bit, but mostly just talk with viewers and see kind of what people are thinking about the vehicle so far. Um, are you going to fix the IMA for the factory dash or do a custom one? Basically, what I'm hoping to do, I went to a junkyard and cut pigtails. I took the pigtail from my factory IMA battery and cut one off the chassis of another vehicle. And I made a T-harness basically. The IMA battery has the wires for the entire vehicle CAN bus that runs through it, and there's also a dedicated IMA CAN bus that runs through it. So I would like to get involved with both of those and see what kinds of signals. I have to find someone else local to me that has another CRZ with a working IMA system. But I'd like to read in the factory signals and see what type of communication there is between the battery and the dash. I'm sure there's quite a bit, with battery status, assistance status, whether it's charging or not, how much it is charged, all that. Um, and then basically I'd like to try to work. I reached out to Joe, 9th Gen EE, that does the TPMS boards, and asked him if he might be interested in helping me or doing a collaboration to develop something that basically plugs into the factory battery harness in the trunk, leaving the IMA actual system completely disconnected and fools the vehicle into thinking the IMA is present and working, and maybe just at like a low battery, no assistance state maybe or something. I haven't done any sniffing yet, so I don't know what the communication's like. But my goal is to design something like that. So even for people that don't have a swapped vehicle, if they have like an older CRZ and the battery's just dead, and they want to pull it out to save weight or something and don't want to bother replacing it, this is also a module they could just plug in to keep the lights off the dash. That's kind of my overarching goal. I have not dived a whole lot into that yet, just with all the other projects going on, but that's kind of my plan for that so far. As far as the seats go, the airbag sensors have been an interesting one. I picked up, I located at a junkyard near me a 2006 Civic SIR coupe that was wrecked, and it happened to have both seats in it. They both had like the rails and everything. None of the side airbags had blown, and they gave me a ridiculously good price on the pair of them. It was like I think $50 for the two seats. So I was like, you know what? Let me try it and see what we can get. The driver's side went in flawlessly. That was super simple, aside from changing the feet over and everything. And I've seen a ton of people that will cut the old feet off and then weld new ones on. I do not have access to that kind of fabrication personally, so I went for redrilling and using some super low profile bolts, which also went fairly well, and that'll all be documented in an upcoming video also. Um, but for the passenger seat, I swapped over. There's a lot of sensors in the passenger seat for the CRZ. There's sensors all through the back for occupancy detection, and then there's also weight sensors in the rails. So what I ended up doing was first taking the Civic SI seat, removing the factory rails entirely, and putting the CRZ rails with their original weight sensors on, and then keeping the Civic occupancy detection module and sensors on. Um, so I kind of did half and half that way. Put the seat in the vehicle, and the testing tool that I have from Foxwell that I picked up, which so far has been quite useful, has an OPDS reprogramming function, like a calibration setting. But I ran that through and it was not able to get the OPDS module in the Civic seat to mate with the CRZ SRS system. So I'm going to take that back out of the vehicle and kind of complete the job by removing the CRZ occupancy sensors from the back and everything, stuffing them into the Civic seat, and then it will basically just be a Civic seat with all CRZ electronics, and that should work just fine. I was hoping to get away without doing that. I've seen some people in the fit groups actually that have got away with the same generation Civic seats from a coupe completely plug and play without having to do anything with their occupancy modules. So I was hoping it'd be the same case in the CRZ, and unfortunately it was not. But if you have the downtime to just remove the covers off both seats and dig the sensors out, it's not much more of a hassle to do it that way. So that's the route that I'm going to try next, and we will find out how that goes. Let's see here. Actually, I just realized that I need to move these feet up a little bit because right now, as I'm designing this bracket, I've basically, let's see if this is a better view from over here. So we've got our physical bolt head and washer visible above this gray pad that I'm making. So I put my pad beneath it thinking, oh yeah, this has to fit under the washer, but right now that washer is sitting right on the floor. So I actually need to lift this bracket up and put it where that washer is currently at, because that is where the actual contact with the floor is. And that is the kind of thing that even if you have a 3D scan, a simple mental oversight like that you will fabricate a whole part and then suddenly realize that it is a disaster. And let's see, back up to 10.5 then, I guess. And you'll have spent all that money for nothing and have to go make a new part. So I always try to double check that kind of stuff and just make sure that I am building the part exactly where I think it needs to be. And so far, I think that is much better. Let's raise that up a little bit more. The other thing that you can do, of course, when you're making something like this is design slop in the bracket. So basically this hole cutout right here is much larger than the actual bolt going through it, but that gives me wiggle room to position the bracket exactly how I need for the best fitment. And we'll do the same thing on this side. Of course, these side brackets will make these holes a bit larger diameter than the actual bolts, so that if it's vertically or horizontally not quite in the right space after bolting it to the floor, we'll still be able to line it up with the armrest and bolt it together. yeah, so let's go ahead and throw a bend on these. Do 11 on both of those because that will clear the washers. And then we'll just do a little bend, maybe another 45. That seems a bit steep, but that just might be what we have to do. No, well, that's okay. That'll clear it just fine. So we'll do a 45 on that, 2mm radius. And same thing here. I'll just copy that. 45° 2mm radius. Okay. So now what that leaves us with is going to be a bracket that's slightly sloping down. Bring these back out to being flat here. 45 there. And we'll do 45 here. And I need to adjust the bend radius on the other one I just did. This one. Okay. So that looks like it will work perfectly. And now what I want to do, these should be planar again. Yeah, this tab and this tab over here should line up with each other. So what I want to do now is make a plate that meets the two of them together, and we will bring in external geometry for this here and here. So now I can use these lines as an exact reference without having to know what my dimensions are or my exact locations. And we will just put a nice little radius on this. I am a big fan of inheritance machining on YouTube, and the fact that he puts chamfers on everything I think is awesome, and I try to put little radii wherever I can in here. Not just because it prevents sharp corners and stuff, or because it looks nice, but it's also helpful for stuff like this that's getting manufactured with the bending process. Having a gradual radius there instead of like a sharp angle right off the bat going straight, it acts as a relief so that when this is getting bent and the material bows out a bit in the bending process, it doesn't affect the dimensions as much or the accuracy. So we've got that there. We'll do another one right here. And this will bring it parallel, just like so. There we are. And then we want these to be tangent with this other section of bracket coming out. And now we can have a rectangle here, just a rough mock-up to start. Oh, what did I do? I did not connect that correctly. So this rectangle here in the center will be, yeah, that'll come stick out down here toward the back of the vehicle. And then these side tabs will eventually meet up and mate with that. And when you have a bracket like this with multiple bends that are not all square or easy numbers, the math for getting everything to line up and actually make a coherent part can be kind of tricky, and I am going to save that for future me because he loves doing that kind of stuff. He doesn't mind. So if we're at this angle, how far can we go before it collides with the floor? Let's see, or the cables. Quite far, actually, it looks like. So that's nice. That gives us a good amount of room to play with for attaching these other parts here. let's see. Yeah, and so far this is looking somewhat similar to that factory bracket that I have reference images of. Um, Not exactly the same design, but it's close enough. And I think actually, let me look at this because yeah, it looks like on the factory bracket, there's actually on this side tab here, we only have one hole that mounts into the armrest. But the factory bracket actually has an extra little tab that comes off this edge and bends out to meet this mounting tab. And my guess is that that helps stabilize it even farther and kind of connect the armrest console and everything in a more cohesive bundle. So maybe I will add a couple bends and get a tab out there as well, and we'll see if that's worthwhile. The only thing is that there's a plastic clip in here, and there's like it's not a machine screw, but just a regular, like a more coarse thread screw that goes in through that. And if I bend a tab out here and put it in front of or behind this, that might not, there might not be anything for a bolt to grab through on the other side. I suppose I could just use a nut on the other side, but we'll see. We'll kind of save that as a final project, I think. Excuse me. Drink a little bit more liquid here. All right. Figured out where the unused bracket that came with the shifter cable bracket kit goes. It mounts to the ACM bracket that hangs down above the shift cable hole. Oh, interesting. Okay. I still have mine. I think I saved it. Um, that's interesting. That's great to know. Like I said in the video, that I ordered those brackets and it didn't come with any paperwork or instructions, so I didn't see an immediate need for it, so I left it aside. Out of curiosity, which shifter cables did you end up going with for your swap? I ended up using hybrid racing cables, and to this day I'm a bit concerned about how tight the bends are. Those cables are pretty stiff. They don't feel like they really have a lot of give around some of the corners. Um, so it made me a little bit nervous, but I've heard a lot of other people say you can use this or that cable, but I have had a hard time finding actual confirmed, like, here's the actual cables I use for my Accord and here's how they fit and stuff like that. So I went with the Civic ones just because that was seemed like what I had the most info on, but I'd be curious to hear what you came up with. You had the V6 Accord cables, and you had to have that bracket to make them work. Okay. So is that what you're still using now for your final project, or did you switch over to? Yeah, I know everywhere's out of stock. Yeah, I happened to grab mine like right as they came in on Tuner's website. They were there for like maybe a day. Um, yeah, it is has been tough to get a hold of those. I also considered 3D scanning and designing my own cable bracket. I may still do that at some point if there's a big need for it. I don't know that. I mean, I could design it, I guess, for the exact cables that I used. I don't know how well that would translate to other types of cables, but that could be a future project as well for sure. Let's see. I would love to see if I have a way to translate these other messages that came through here. I might just have to copy these and go put them in a translate window here and see what we get. Okay, just throwing these into Google real quick. It looks like they're saying, please speak in Korean. Which part is this for the CRZ? So, unfortunately, I do not speak Korean. The closest thing I have to that is the 3 words of Japanese that I learned a couple of summers ago, so I do apologize for that. Um, this part that we're working on here is the mounting bracket, the intermediate bracket for the factory armrest accessory. So I just picked up a second-hand one that I'm going to install in my vehicle, and it did not come with this mounting bracket, so I'm going to design my own and make that available to others if they also need one. So that is what we're working on here right now. Okay, we went with the inline 4 Accord cables, cut and threaded them to shorten them enough to make it fit. Okay. Transmission bracket to make him work with the K20C3. Okay, interesting. That's an interesting setup. For some reason, I thought the 4-banger cables from the Accord couldn't be used at all, but that is exciting that you got them to fit, and great knowledge for others doing the swap. Um, yeah, that was one of the biggest unknowns for me working on the swap, even during the research phase. It just seemed like there was a lot of ambiguity there about what would work and what would not. So I went with the hybrid racing cables. I got them during, I think, their Black Friday deal last year, and thought I'll just try them out and hope I can get the correct bracket or possibly make my own. But yeah, outside of that, it was a bit nebulous. So I'm glad that you got something sorted as well. Did you end up using the, um, oh, of course, using Google Translate to send a message back. I should have thought about that. Brilliant. Um, the shifter assembly that you used, did you end up just sticking with a stock one or switching that out with, I think, did Abdul use an RSX shifter or something like that? I don't remember. Um, but I feel like with the right cables, you can get it to play nice with just a factory shifter box if that's what you feel like using. I'm going to get the other side bracket up here, I think. Let's go ahead and start on that. Yep, okay. Perfect. So we've got one right here, and that's going to be one of our mounting spots, and then the other one looks like is a little bit iffy on where that lines up, so maybe we make that hole a bit larger. Oh, that might work right there well enough. Thankfully, on the armrest side of these brackets, they have threaded nuts welded on the back. So, for example, on this side, what I will do is pull out the plastic nut right here, where the center console mounts and attaches to, and just run one of the included bolts all the way through to the armrest bracket and kind of clamp them together that way. So that should work good for this side. Like I said, we'll see what happens on the other side. But for now, we can get this put together here. Mark these out where these go. Six. This one will be 85, 75, and 2475. That should work. That should work just fine. Okay. Stock shift box with the cutie bushings. He did the RSX. Oh, that's right. He ended up having to do a custom mounting plate and drill and holes and everything. Yeah, I also did not want to do that. The fewest amount of holes to drill and fabrications to make, the better, in my opinion. And so far, that seems to be pretty doable. Yeah, the Acuity bushings are a great upgrade. I had a 2015 Fit for a few years, and I wanted to give that a little bit better of a daily driver experience, but not shell out for a hybrid racing shifter assembly or Acuity. So I did the base bushings upgrade and the transmission bushings, and with even just a factory shifter, that does make quite a big difference. So yeah, that's definitely a worthwhile uh, budget upgrade to make. And I am a big fan of that kind of stuff. Um, just finding inexpensive ways to still have an enjoyable experience, still get everything to work well without just shelling out a ton of money on the biggest name brand parts. Like while I was doing parts shopping, especially on like K series parts and hybrid racing, you see all the custom like fuel line stuff and the custom harnesses and everything, and it's nice, and I get why people would use it, but my goal is to have a fully functional swap, a reliable swap without shelling out a ton of money, which is also the reason that I'm doing all the work myself. So I am always a big fan of finding upgrades like that that do not break the bank. In my opinion, that is the way to go. Okay, this guy we'll put at maybe 140. Radius there. And we need one on this side too. Oh, you did do a custom fuel setup? Oh, that's great. Okay, here's a question that I have for you then, because right now I am on stock size fuel lines, same, the original K series injectors, all of that. Basically, the only thing I did for more power was just larger diameter intake and exhaust. So did you end up doing anything to, did you switch out the injectors? I think I've seen some people use like MDX or something injectors, just higher flow rate. Um, and if so, did you also have to change out the fuel pump? Because right now the CRZ one is working fine for me, but I'm curious how much extra overhead that has before you have to think about something else. Let's see, this bracket will be a bit trickier to get right because it sticks out farther back, and I still have to bring it forward around the cables. So we'll see what we can make of that here. Sure, we'll go 32. Can I not? Oh, I guess I can't control the radius of that. It's linked to the other one. So that'll have to scoop forward really far out like this, and then this portion of the bracket could meet up with it at some point. Let's see here. 4 on that. Make this parallel. Okay. K-tune rail, 850cc injectors, and a higher flow rate pump from an 08 SI. Okay. Got an entire. Oh, perfect. Man, that's the way to go if you get a donor car complete with the basically the whole drivetrain and everything you need. That's huge right there. 3K for the whole car. Trans by itself was 2400, but the engine didn't come with a transmission. Yeah, I was fortunate enough to find an engine transmission pair, and the transmission was the one with an LSD and everything. That entire drivetrain setup still did run me 3 grand, motor and transmission combined, and they also sent me with the shifter box cables and factory axles and the factory exhaust header as well. So I was able to sell a few of those secondhand and recoup a little bit of that money. But it was that drivetrain was the second most expensive part of the whole build. But yeah, if you're looking to do a swap and you can find a donor vehicle with the engine you need, and just get a wrecked vehicle, pull all the guts out of it, use it in your own car, and then even, flip some of the parts that are still intact, something from the interior or whatever maybe, then that is far and away a better option than trying to piece it together from different junkyards or even stuff that's online. I spent quite a while shopping on eBay and other places for a motor and transmission that I could get shipped over by freight. And by the time I factored in delivery cost for them to get to me, it was essentially the same price as getting that 3K one from a junkyard, and at least that one I felt better about because I could go see it in person. They had compression numbers I could look over and inspect for any obvious damage or stuff that had to be taken care of. So that's the route that I ended up going. Let's see, 44, that'll work. Just read that out by 2. Perfect. And that fits exactly within, here's our armrest bracket right here, dropping down, my bracket that will sit in between, and then this portion right here is the bracket on the floor that the console bolts to, so there's perfect gap in there for a 2mm steel plate to squeeze everything together without bending anything out of shape, which I think is awesome, and that should work wonderfully. Now I just have to make sure that I can get this down here and bent out of the way without colliding with anything else. And that looks like it's already quite close to something down in here. Spare case 20 now. eBay stores full SI parts, hauled off the frame and everything else. Is that getting used or sold? Excellent. Wow. Yeah, sounds like you have it even better planned out than I did. That yeah, getting parts out of a car and basically making your money back on buying the vehicle if you can on those is huge. And that's just another awesome factor about doing a swap yourself, doing all the labor DIY and stuff, is just finding those ways to reduce the overall cost at the end of the day. So yeah, that's awesome to hear that you were able to do that, and you've got a spare engine on the side if you pick up another vehicle to swap, or someone that locally starts a project and needs an engine, then that is wonderful. Let's see, we'll hide the armrest again because I have all the positioning I need for that now. And yeah, now we're gonna hit the tricky part with getting, let's see, we've got these plates here on the side, which are perfectly vertical, but the bends coming off them are at an angle in this direction. And we also have to get them to mate up with this bottom plate, which is also at like a 10-degree slant down here. So any bends coming up off of that are going to be slightly askew as well. So one thing that I could try to do here is match that 7 or 10 or whichever angle that was on this upper part, and then just have a couple more 45-degree bends, and that might be, if we have enough space for that, that might be the way to go just to keep things simple. And we can extend, yeah, we can just extend this farther forward to make that possible. Let's give that a shot and see how it works. Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, like I said, I don't have any education with CAD or anything. It's basically just self-taught kind of hobby experience. And I mean, clearly my dimensions and everything are all over the place. It's a bit messy, but yeah, I actually have really enjoyed learning to do this kind of stuff and designing my own parts. I think that's been super helpful, especially doing any kind of custom automotive stuff like this. For example, the radiator brackets that I did for the swap, those were actually 3D printed steel, but I designed those myself as well off a 3D scan, and that's something that I don't think anybody sells right now for a K-swap CRZ, so it was really cool to be able to just design my own part, have it printed, and then coat it in some paint and bolt it right on, and it worked straight away. But yeah, I appreciate that. I've been trying to get some techniques and stuff down for good CAD practices. And it looks like that is a 70 or 7-degree angle there. So what I might do, let's see, that's this guy right here. So we will do an 83-degree angle on that, and that puts it parallel with this plate down here. So what I think I'll do is grab, actually I don't want that plate to be out that long though. Let's trim that in a little bit first. We'll bring that up to, say, like 42 millimeters. Because I've seen when I'm using the parking brake assembly, these cables flex and change position a bit, and I want to make sure I have clearance there without contacting anything or causing any extra wear. I might actually shorten that up even farther a little bit. Let's do 40. And then we'll, of course, round those corners off. Do I still have... Yeah, here we go. We'll make those parallel and 4 millimeter radius. No, actually I don't want to do that because well, actually I'll just throw these on right now. So what we'll start with down here is a little bend. Oh, I did not recompute that after removing those radii. Yeah, I want to keep these straight after all because I'm going to have the tabs just come directly off those corners and keep going straight. So we will match those back up and set this back to 40. Okay, so then what we'll do is we'll throw a bend on here. We'll do like maybe minus just another 45, I suppose. That's all we really need. And then a 2 millimeter radius. And I think I have to finish this first and then go to my gap. Yes. So we'll put a gap on this side so that not that entire face is being used for the tab. Let's see. Take our, where is my, is it this one? I want to have no relief on there because I can add my own later. So I want this to be, let's see, measure, how long is this right now? 30 millimeters. Okay, that's pretty, I think that's pretty good structurally. That's one thing that I have not done with any of my CAD is figure out how to do um, strain testing or any like real world analysis, that type of stuff to see is this the thickness of this part I'm making actually going to hold up to whatever load it is. So I've just been, most of these parts I've been designing have been completely freehand in terms of me estimating how much material or how thick or whatever I will need to support a certain thing. Let's see here. And these, oh yeah, this is going to be fun to mate up. So here's already a bit of issue I can see with kind of what I was mentioning earlier, where these already don't line up well, so I'm going to have to do some manual math probably to make sure that this lines up without making a bunch of extra shapes on my own and just trial and erroring it. I know, that's my thought process. It's metal, it's probably fine. I've had some stuff made out of aluminum before that gets iffy, but if I'll make this out of stainless and it'll work just fine. And there's enough attachment points. Like I said, without a bracket, it's already fairly stable in the center console. But I mean, if you mash down on the front end of it, it'll pop up and out. But this is not the only thing holding it in place, so I'm not super concerned. I don't think I will make that little extra tab that comes out here to this mounting one for the center console. Partly because then if someone else is having this fabricated, it will be less expensive. Every bend adds expense, extra material adds expense. So that'll make the final product a bit less expensive, and I think the stability will probably still be pretty good there. So I think I'm gonna leave the offset design for now. I might reconsider that at the end of the day when the rest of this is done, but for now I'm not gonna worry about it. Let's see. So I'm gonna come back to this side actually because I feel like I might have a better time. Well, I don't suppose it's gonna matter. They're both gonna be equally difficult to line up. But if I can get, let's see. So if I can we'll make this a construction line and this one also. If I can basically get this side part of the bracket to come out to right here and make just kind of a S-shaped section of the bracket to meet out there, that will probably make it easier to get the final parts lined up and convert this into a solid object. So we'll put a couple curves right here. We'll do like maybe radius 4 there and 8 there. I love my even numbers, and I use them liberally in my designs. Let's see, make sure that is parallel there. Okay, so knowing that this part of the bracket is 30, was it 30 millimeters across? Yeah. Then what I can do is add, sure, we'll use this outside one here, construction geometry, and make this parallel so I know that this is exactly lined up. That takes care of at least one dimension of getting this lined up correctly. Then we'll grab these and bring them out here and connect that back with the original bracket. Yeah, I'll do tangent for this and that. This guy can be our 4 millimeter radius. Actually, I'm going to make that even smaller. That needs to be a little bit tighter in there. Okay, then this guy can come out. Yeah, we'll leave that one out of the picture for a minute. And put one here. Meet it up with the end of that. Put on a parallel constraint. More tangents. And then we'll make this one radius 12. Why not? And that is not going to let me keep my bend on there because of a problem I seem to have not foreseen. Did I leave an extra? Oh, that needs to be construction geometry. This is not constrained, but that's fine. Okay, there we go. So this is what I am thinking now for my side design, although I feel like this particular kind of pinch, this narrowest area, could be a problem, so we'll bring this corner farther up because we definitely have space for it. But that seems, well, we have space for it if we ignore the fourth mounting point, which I'm going to for now, just to keep things simple. And yeah, let's move this guy up a bunch. Okay, that's better. That is better. So I want to keep checking, make sure I'm not colliding with anything that I don't want to. Let's move it up a little bit more because okay, it doesn't want me to move that up farther. Why not? Does that cause a problem with another chunk of geometry somewhere? Maybe we just get rid of some of these extra components that aren't helping anybody. And we'll put our angle on this. 83. And then let's see. Okay, 41 I'd like to get rid of. So that puts you at 32 tall, but this can still go up and down by itself. Yes. Okay. There we go. So now those are separated and this is quite a bit higher up. So now the last thing that we need to do is calculate how we're going to get these to meet up. And what I could actually do there, I forget how I've done it with brackets in the past. I might just have to do some actual calculation because yeah, if that's on a slope, at least that'll match up. That'll make it easier. But it is going to have to come out farther, and this portion down here is going to have to go higher up. So let's say we put that. Let's see. I'll just do a constraint from the top for now. Line that up. There we go. What else is not constrained here? This. Those can go away. There we go. Okay, so here is what I'm talking about here. This will also have a minus 45 degree, 2 millimeter, and now I have to figure out how to get these exactly lined up with each other while keeping, and we do have room to play in here, at least on this side. The other one is going to be quite a bit tighter. Actually, it is going to be quite a lot tighter. This, right in here, this bit that's sticking out right underneath where that bracket is a clip for the electrical harness that runs along the side of the console. So if worst comes to worst, I can just pop that clip out and ignore it. That is not something crucial that will actually block our way very much. So I'm going to keep that in mind for the design here and just making sure that nothing else critical collides. But yeah, as far as this goes, that'll be a bit more of a project to line up. Now the other thing that I could do here, actually, this is exactly what I will do to make it easy. We will take care of this bend and reopening, where'd it go? This one. Yes, this geometry doesn't exist anymore, so we're going to attach it to that instead, and that should fix our problem there. Okay, so now it's still exactly lined up with the corner of this plate. But what I can do now is come here, we'll make a sketch on this face. Yes, so let's hide this. Let's hide I want to keep that visible and hide those. And this? Yeah, sure. Okay, so now I want to include this as my geometry. And, oh, actually, I do not want to do that because I need to make this transparent. Sorry, this is, now I'm getting kind of into my own little groove and talking more to myself than anything else. But this is kind of how my creative process works for this kind of stuff. Once I find my solution, then it gets a bit easier. Okay, so what I'm going to do is make the face on the back here where it's exactly lined up with this back face. And then we will grab this external geometry. So now, if we're making this shape, I can exactly, oh, let's see, I need to grab this as well. I can make this mate up right there, bring in a couple curves, and basically force this to line up with where I need it to go. And then we'll just extend that out 30 millimeters. Okay, this is going to come down right here at a height of 2. And then, yeah, okay. Now this does have, if I want to keep this at a 2 millimeter bend radius, which I do because it keeps whoever's manufacturing this, keeps their tooling simple, then we can bring this in right here, and perfect. Now we go, whoops, minus 30. And just like that, we have the remainder of the bend mating up perfectly with the rest of this part. And then what I will probably do is cut a little relief half circle in here. Actually, no, I'll put an exterior radius on that because the relief doesn't need to be there because the bend is farther out. So now all we have to do is check that it will fit. And it certainly looks like it will. Wonderful. So yeah, that's one of the benefits to me coming in here and making sure that this lined up was the same angle as the plate beneath it, because then I can just do an easy single dimension of work to get that to line up correctly. And now we just have to get that done on the other side, and I think we're all set. I'm glad that you're finding this interesting. I really am. To be honest, I have done live streaming before, way many years ago when I was in college. I had a YouTube channel that was focused mainly on Lego and doing custom creations and stuff like that. And I built that up a fair amount. Not anything significant by modern YouTube standards, but it was cool for me. And I did some live streams on that too, doing custom creations and unboxing sets and stuff. So I do have some experience with streaming in general, but I have no clue if somebody wants to sit down at a desk for a couple hours and watch me stumble through doing a CAD model while talking about a car that I'm working on. So I'm glad that someone's finding this interesting. That's actually very genuinely makes me happy. So I'm glad to hear that. And I have to figure out. Okay, here we go. Here's my extrusion. And what I think I will try. How much room do I have on this side? Right here. Looks like I've got quite a bit of space going forward from there. So what I might try, just to keep things as OEM as possible so we can keep that cable clipped there, I think what I might do is change up the shape of this a little bit. And where is that clip located at exactly? Oh, that's right, it's down toward the bottom right here. So I just need something that will clear over the top of that before we drop down to our slope here. So once again, we will grab the external geometry, and this tool that I'm using, this little external geometry tool, basically lets you grab a reference from another existing part in the list, and then it shows up here as purple, and then I can basically anchor any dimension or component to that so that it lines up exactly without me having to go look at that part and say, okay, here's the coordinate that that corner's at, and then punching in the same exact dimension here. Very, very useful tool for sure. And overall, I've been quite happy with FreeCAD and its capabilities. Um, I'm a big fan of open source software. The 1.0 update has been buggy for me. I keep getting these messages popping up in the bottom about missing vertexes and stuff. That's been a thing ever since the complete overhaul came out. But I have been pretty much ignoring it, which is awesome, and it hasn't been much of an issue otherwise, and it does everything else I need it to, so I've been quite satisfied with that. This we're going to make another 83-degree angle, perfectly parallel as all things should be. Another 4mm radius here, and then, okay, I'm going to delete these that I was working on up here for the moment, because those will have to change. This guy we can keep and just give it a nice gradual angle coming down here. Make this one tangent and give it a radius. So now with this shape, and it's going to bark at me because it's not a closed shape. So now, yeah, this is essentially what the new bracket will look like on this side. So I'll bring it forward some more, but it'll just basically step right over that plastic clip and then, ooh, interesting. That is interesting, because that plastic clip comes farther in than the edge of this bracket is. Okay, well, maybe we just start it higher up in here and just have it angle out sooner. Let's give that a try. Let's see how that works. Yeah, it sounds like you are my target market. I love it. SolidWorks, I have heard a ton about, of course. I think that's kind of the industry standard. And I actually have some friends that are going to school to be real engineers, which is great. And that is what they're using and getting familiar with. One of the toughest things for me with software is that I don't like paying for it. And once I've learned a specific workflow, it's really difficult for me to change that. So, for example, the video editing software that I use is a program called Power Director. It's made by Cyberlink, and that came as a free software on the first laptop I ever bought back in like 2013 or something like that. And I got used to editing little videos on that, and I have been using it ever since. I've tried After Effects, I've tried Sony Vegas Pro, I've tried a couple other, like Windows Movie Maker just for fun. Obviously, that's not really a true full fat video editor, but I always come back to Power Director because that's just what I'm used to, the interface, the layout of everything, the workflow, and I feel like it's going to be the same for CAD, even if at some point I needed more features that SolidWorks could offer that FreeCAD doesn't, or collaborating with other people that wanted to use SolidWorks. I feel like it would be a huge barrier for me to transition over and learn that software because I've become so entrenched. Um, but yes, the open source has made huge improvements. It is far more capable than what it would have been years ago, and it's very impressive to me that we can have software this robust that allows people like me to make this kind of stuff, and it's just available for free, and it's stable and it's well featured, and like I said, this toolbox that I'm using here to create these bends, just automatically generate them with parameters, is, I believe, also an additional plugin for FreeCAD. It's not bundled with it's not part of the software as it comes vanilla. But yeah, just that type of flexibility is amazing. That is one of the big reasons I do love using open source stuff. Um, and I'm kind of stalling a little bit here because this this clip is in exactly the right spot to throw me off, and I am curious how that was handled. The reference bracket from Honda that I'm looking at, this image, doesn't even necessarily feature two bends like I have here. It's actually, it looks like basically just a 90-degree bend, which seems reasonable to me, and on this side at least there's tons of clearance for that. I do like that the double 45s kind of match this factory bracket over here a bit better. I feel like that is quite a nice looking little blend there, and following along the factory lines. But on the Honda bracket it is a 90, and I'm wondering if I could get away with that in here if I move this portion even farther forward toward the front of the vehicle. Again, to completely pass that clip, is this portion that's down here high up enough to make it that far without hitting the floor? It looks like it is. That could work. And then what I would probably end up doing, because that would be farther forward, so that section of the bracket would probably come across like right here and meet up. So then I could do just a simple angle cut along here so that there's not a big jarring edge that has no purpose on this corner. So let's give that a shot and see if we can fit a 90 in there. I think that'll be worth trying. Yes, so it is currently parallel here. So what I want to do instead of anchoring this corner, I'm going to create a construction line here that's parallel. We'll just give that some, sure, arbitrary height. And then what we can do from there is make a little construction line here that is parallel and is of a given, we'll anchor this end of it to that line so that it's always lined up. And now I can just change the length of this blue line to offset that mounting tab. And in this case now I do want it to, let's see, if we're going to do a 90, I do need that to come down pretty far. So let's see. Let's just make sure it clears that clip first. And that does still need to go farther forward, so let's move it up to like 10 millimeters forward maybe. And then, ooh, is that gonna, oh, that's gonna be right on the inside of this radius in here. That's gonna line up right on top of that. So maybe we'll do, well, let's keep it with 30. I can play with the geometry in there to get a relief once it's done. But let's go ahead and finish up this side, get it looking nice. We'll mark this 76. That's not going to be parallel. We want that coming down here. Another 4 millimeter radius it is. and make sure these are tangent, and this is tangent, and this is perpendicular. Okay. Nice. So, how tall do we want this to be? Let's just say for now, we make this 6 millimeters tall for now. And then our distance here, can I get, I cannot. Maybe we'll add another construction line here that is perpendicular, that goes 42 millimeters. Excellent. And then we can set our distance away from that. Perfect. So let's make it we'll do 3 millimeters up from there. And bring this. Sure, let's see how that looks. Okay, still a little bit low, so maybe let's just increase the radius of this up to 8. Scoot that back a little bit. Okay, there we go. So now our bracket curves just nicely right around where that plastic clip for the wire harness is going to have to go. And it looks like we still clear almost everything else. It's going to hit the carpet on the back here. It's kind of hard to see because I have it transparent right now, but this is actually sort of cutting in through the carpet. It's flexible, it'll be hidden by the console, so it's probably fine, but I think I will still change that. Actually, I'm going to basically invert this setup here. Let's bring this up to be more parallel, and this one like so, and then we'll do a curve going the opposite way underneath these. Tangent there, 4. So something like this. Yeah, that clears the carpeting a bit better. So I think we'll do that. And then it comes down right here. So now all we need to do is have our arm that comes out and makes a nice little 90 to meet up with that. And what I think I'll do for that, let's see, which model is this? Yeah. This is probably going to break those side sketches again that are referencing this geometry, but we'll try to be somewhat gentle about it. Yeah, that's excellent. If you can find a secondhand armrest that comes with this bracket, beautiful. That is definitely what you'll want to do. And I know that some people, I've seen ones that go for sale here and there where people will charge a lot more because they know it has a bracket with it and they know they're not as common. But if you can find a good deal on one that has all the hardware, that is excellent. And mine actually did come with, I mentioned back at the start of the stream, I have a Japanese center console, which at one point had the factory armrest built into it. So it already has the holes drilled out on the sides for these access to these bolts to go in. It just didn't come with the armrest. I completely forgot where I was leading with that. Anyway, yeah, the armrest that I picked up did not come with the secondary bracket, so the prep work was already there. And the armrest that I bought did come with the bolts that I need to go through this bracket that I'm designing now. It just didn't have the actual bracket itself. And I understand, I mean, I'm sure it's not malicious. A lot of times when this gets sold without that bracket, people will just unbolt the armrest and pull it out and assume that the bracket that stays down there is in every vehicle or something. I'm certainly understanding that could be the case, but for a lot of people, yeah, the vehicles didn't all come equipped with them. It came with the armrest to start, so a lot of times you're out of luck if you find a factory replacement armrest and it doesn't have all the parts to it. Thankfully, um, like I said, on the actual armrest on here, this this main metal assembly coming out the bottom of the armrest already has threaded hardware on the back side of it, and it's just a standard. I think it's an M6 bolt. Let's see. Yeah, just typical M6 bolts. So even if you buy one and it's missing the bracket and it's missing the hardware, the bolts aren't too hard to find, and your armrest should have what they thread into. So that at least is easy. It's just, the bracket that can be problematic, and that is what I am trying to solve here today. So we're getting close to being done on it. The other side is finished, and once this is done, I'll go over it one more time just to make sure there's not any potential clearance issues. But I think we're in a good spot here to put this together. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and add a sketch on top of this piece here and add this geometry. 2 millimeters away from that is where we can start designing this plate, because we have to keep in mind that bend radius. So we'll put that there, this one here, and this one here. Okay, excellent. There we go. So once we have that come down, we can have a little radius here, have that come up this way, and then turn back into a straight section to go on this other half. And this side we'll do the same thing. We'll add a little radius here, and then one that wraps all the way around like this. Put a line in between there, and make these tangent. Give them, of course, a radius of 4 millimeters. And this guy, I need to add this geometry so that I don't overlap those radii. Let's see, I already set those as tangent. This one is going to be 4. Okay, perfect. So that's our bottom, or I guess front section of this done. And then we will get these, make these two vertical here, and then add this geometry, 4 millimeter radius. Actually, I'm just going to do 8 because these are so gradual. Excellent. And that we will bring right to our center line and bring it right onto this. Okay. So what I will do then is just add a quick and dirty box down here, because I'm trying not to, the reference geometry that I used in these other brackets is pulled off of a specific line number on this part, which is how the software handles it. If I modify this large piece in the center that I already have existing and add other lines to it, it'll screw with the layout of the lines in the software, and then the references in these other parts to those lines will break. So rather than doing that and having to rebuild the other parts, what I'm going to do is utilize this piece here, and we'll put a little 90-degree bend off of there, minus 90. This should fit up perfectly because I've already accounted for the radius. And look at that, it fits exactly where we need it to be. So there's our 90-degree on this side. And then finally what I will do is add one more sketch real quick to basically right here. Doesn't have to be any sort of precise. 90, we'll do, actually we'll do 30 on this. And then line that up with this, and make this one 30 millimeters tall. And now what I can do is place this, let's see, we'll extrude it in both directions, and then cut this piece. So now that extra little triangle bit out here is gone without breaking the references to the other part. And now I think we can actually combine all of this into a single piece. Take the extrusion, we'll take this guy here, this bend right here, and this one here, and we can try to fuse them all together, and hopefully that won't crack my software. Looks good. And now the final check, making sure it all still lines up and fits. This side, oh, it still has the opacity, transparency. Get rid of that. Okay, so our bracket on this side looks good. No obvious fitment issues there. Seems to clear both of the cables by a fair amount. And on this side, we're lined up with our top mounts right here, right in between. And how did that 90 turn out fitment wise? Let's see. Ooh, that's close laying right in there, but I think that will work actually. Yeah, I think that's about what we need. That looks like a pretty decent bracket to me. So I think that might be where I leave it. I can't remember if I have a SVG of the Honda Garage logo, but I might add that in here to have it cut out just as a fun little touch. But aside from that, I think this is our final part right here. I think that's what we need. So I'm going to, oh, I was going to add a radius in here. Let's put a 4 millimeter radius there. Love it. Okay, now we've got all rounded corners, all smooth transitions, everything is the same radius for the machines. I think that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. Replace the leather padding. Yes, and I'm actually quite curious how one might do that. I was looking for a long time at one on eBay. It was gray, so I was still debating if I was going to do the black interior gray at the time, and there was a gray one that had all the top upholstery was pretty shredded up and ripped off, and it was not terribly expensive, but I was trying to weigh whether it'd be worth it to buy that armrest and then also pay to have the upholstery redone or learn, spend the time to do it myself. And the one that I ended up finding was in quite good condition. Here it is, actually. Yeah, very nice. Again, all the hardware, latch works great, very clean. And I actually didn't realize this, but it has the red stitching on it, and the SI seats that I put in my vehicle also have the red stitching, which I think is just a nice touch of cohesion there. So I was happy to see that. Yeah, I'd be willing to say this looks mint. I'm pretty happy with it for exactly 2 hours of design time basically. So yeah, I think it looks great to me. What I'll probably end up doing is maybe tweaking a couple dimensions here and there. This far bracket, this one with only a single hole, I don't think that needs to be as large as it is. I might just bring the top down to match it here. If I can find which original part of the construction that is. Let's see, can I keep that visible? Yeah. And just drop this down to match 13 there, and then make this a bit shorter to keep those angles the same. And that should still be. I'll probably get this sent over to my fabricators here next week, and then get that installed and wrap up the actual video on the whole process for that. So I think that's about it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a lot else in the way of content for the stream, so unless there are any final questions or anything, I think that's probably about it for tonight. Um, yeah, but as usual with the rest of my videos, for everybody that stopped in and watched, thank you so much. First live stream, I enjoyed it. I had a good time. Hopefully, it turned out well for you that are viewing it. Um, love to compare notes. Add on Discord. Yes, I will certainly do that. I think it'd be great to go over build list and kind of do a comparison of what we each did. So yeah, I will. Let me mark that down on my notes actually, so I don't forget that in case it doesn't show up in the replay. Uh, Suave Russian. Excellent, excellent username. Okay. I I'll send you some info on Discord. I don't use it super often. The only thing that I'm a part of on there is the Discord group for Collector Car Feed. I don't know if you're familiar at all with their channel, but they make some hilarious content. So I don't check super often, but I would love to send over a message and kind of discuss our builds and see what's up. I'm thinking about doing more live streams in the future. I have other parts that I would like to design and other projects that I'd like to work on. Um, I think especially if I start working on the IMA electronics, that whole delete system, um, working on the code for that is probably something that I might live stream, do a similar just kind of hangout Q&A type of thing. But yeah, I mean, for now, I think that's about it. Yeah, oh, they're so great. I'm glad you know who I'm talking about. Yeah, they're hilarious. I actually submitted the CRZ for Reader's Rides, but I figure it won't show up in a video for another year or two, so we'll see how that goes. Um, but yeah, otherwise, that's about it. So I think I will sign off for now. Thank you guys so much for hanging out, especially those of you guys that were in the chat. Super fun to discuss stuff with you. Um, yeah, the bracket hopefully would be a great replacement. The man finding the gray or the black ones is so tough, but I feel like getting a hold of the black ones is definitely a bit harder. I was very fortunate to come across actually there's a member in one of the Facebook groups who had some leftover parts and accessories from a CRZ he already sold, and I had posted in the groups one day that I was looking for an armrest and a couple other things, and he happened to see that post and messaged me that he had one that he was getting ready to put up for sale and asked if I'd be interested in buying it. So that worked out excellent. That is one of the things that I do love about car communities in general, is just the close knit feeling, between a lot of the members sharing parts, ideas, knowledge. That's super cool, and that's something I have loved being a part of. So yeah, that's it for now. As I said, the design here, this bracket part. Um, I when I finish the installation, I'm going to put up a video kind of going over my whole process with the armrest. And on that video, I will link a download to this file. I don't want to put it out just yet. Obviously, if there's some fitment issue that I haven't foreseen, I'll redesign it before then. But yeah, when that video comes out, this bracket design will be available for anyone to just go out and make their own, and hopefully that helps the few of us owners that are able to get their hands on an armrest still. It's too bad they were discontinued so quickly, but it is what it is. So yeah, I think for now that's about all I have for the stream. So thank you again for watching and sticking around. I had a great time. I hope you did as well. And I suppose I'll see you in another video sometime soon.